Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course really does mark just about the middle portion of the country and, of course, Ohio State. Glad to have you watching here at Pit Stop TV. We have got a fun one in store for you all this evening. Welcome to the virtual Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in the virtual Lexington, Ohio. 2.2 or so miles, 3.5 kilometers and change. That's what we're racing around this evening. Take a look here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course track map, brought to you by Whiplash Media Sim Cams. Of course, there's some famous corners here at Mid-Ohio. Of course, the Keyhole at turn number 2, China Beach at turn 4, the S's, Thunder Valley, and the Carousel make up this course. And the fastest late model stock time, well, we don't have one to put on the track map, but we do know that Zach Shucker currently leads practice at a 1:28.288. It's a solo evening. I do want to wish good luck, if he hasn't raced yet, to our very own Zach Murtis, who is racing this evening at Charlotte Motor Speedway in Cookout Summer Shootout. That's why he's not here with me this evening, and will be kind of intermittent throughout the course of this season. Of course, Pit Stop TV, Whiplash Media Sim Cams, and CC's business. We, of course, support his racing endeavors. But glad to have some drivers of our own this evening on the racetrack at Mid-Ohio. Let's take a look through the field here, and actually through the field in points. First, before we take a look at practice times, of course, Zach Shucker leading the point standings as he's done so much this season. 4 points, though, the margin back to Brandon Webb in the second spot. Dan Rowe only 14 back. Things are tight up there in the front. Sean O'Hara sitting in fourth, and Tim George, who grabbed a win last week at Southern National Motorsports Park, is now up into fifth in the standings. Tyler Langenberg, he is now in sixth. Nearly had himself a win, is tied now with David Levine. He's listed now. The tiebreaker would be David Levine's win, but he's listed right now in iRacing standings ahead of David because of the bonus that was applied to David's points given his win. So, based off of raw race points earned, Tyler Langenberg actually, I think, has one or two more than David Levine, as we take a look at the full top 10. And of course, let's take a look at our schedule this season, brought to you by Elevated Performance. To rise, you must elevate. South Boston Speedway, way back on May 9th of 2023. We're now down to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and this is subject to change, particularly the last few races. More on that in the coming weeks here at the DLine Racing League. But North Wilkesboro Speedway next up after this evening here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. You see Mid-Ohio, Wilkesboro, Martinsville, Five Flags, a lot of really good tracks coming up. A lot of really fun tracks. Of course, North Wilkesboro is going to have that kind of driver challenge. Of course, uphill into turn 3, downhill into turn 1. Real bumpy. It's the 1987 version of the racetrack. Martinsville, of course, long straightaways, hard braking zones, although they're probably the hardest braking zones we see on an oval for these cars, aside from maybe New Hampshire, but we still won't see much braking, but it will be good racing. We know that from past broadcasts here with this car on Pit Stop TV. Five Flags be really fast, really free, and certainly challenge the drivers as well. As far as practice times, we've got to look at them here on our ticker, or at least where everybody sits in practice. Zach Shucker, the fastest of the bunch, currently practicing a standing start. Thankfully, won't have to do that in the race this evening. Kyle House, second quick in car 28 as he gives the car a rev. How about Brandon Webb in car 23rd quick? There's, of course, Tyler Langenberg with new lights. I think that's a Mini Cooper. And I will say that is one of the most unique uses of the panels on a race car that I have ever seen. That is bizarre to look at. Anyways, with Tyler Langenberg there in the fourth spot, here's Michael Melvin. Slightly, I shouldn't say more normal, but the proportions are at least a little more accurate there. Timothy George, you know what I can do with that Cadillac nose. There is Zach Lindgren, making a rare start this evening. We'll talk more about him, I'm sure. Dan Rowe, a sports car paint scheme. Hey, it's fitting. For car 68 is now Langenberg. Well, that Mini Cooper certainly has got some horses in it this evening. Goes to the top of the board. A 1:28.283. Beats out Zach Shucker for fastest in qualifying, rather. I said practice. In qualifying by 5/1000ths of a second. The qualifying coming down to it, a new pole sitter. It's a Mini Cooper. As here's a look at Sean O'Hara, freshly off the Penske plane. David Levine is here today, of course. Eddie Moran in car number 1. Kevin O'Hara with us as always. Spiro Poulos, Pat Cole, Joseph Tackett did not get a time in this qualifying session, as these guys have a little bit of extra time to get their times in. Tim George on track. He actually might have something, although actually I think he just went through turn 1, so maybe not. How about Sean O'Hara then? Let's go on board and see what it's like inside the car for Sean O'Hara. Now this race will not be the normal format. I will say that much. This will be a 25 lap race, 25 lap feature, as opposed to our dual race format. Of course, we still have as many as 3 green-white checkers, as Sean O'Hara takes a little bit of extra practice here. I think just practicing some standing starts. Is it a standing start? I wonder. You know, David Levine might have been diabolical enough to do that. So we'll check it out here in a moment, but we may actually have a standing start. Just going back to race details, we're going to have this graphic up in just a moment. Of course, we're keeping the damage healing enabled, and we are on iRacing fixed setups. So here we go. There's that graphic finally for the race details, brought to you by Whiplash Media Simcams this evening. 25 lap race, or 1 hour and I think 50 minutes, which we certainly will not hit. Fixed setups, up to 3 green checkers, and of course still damage healing enabled. Let's take a look at our weather coming into this evening then. And well, for this race, 73.7 degrees in the air, 79 on the track, and it looks like it's towards the evening potentially. Hard to say sometimes in iRacing if it's the evening or morning, but you can see the sun a little bit lower in the sky, and I would have to say that looks a bit more like a sunset. But I'm not actually sure. I guess it would depend on which way the track is oriented in space. But with 6 seconds left in qualifying, how about a big thank you to our partners here at Pit Stop TV, Whiplash Media Simcams, ATVO, and CC's Business. We see T. Waith out in the chat, GT46 saying hi. Good to see you here this evening. We are looking over on Kick as well. Of course, streaming to Facebook and Twitter along with it. We do have a grid getting ready for us down trackside, and oh boy, we are going to have a standing start. David Levine was that diabolical to do it. Let's take a look quickly then at the grid. Tyler Langenberg on pole. Zach Schucker will start from 2nd. Kyle House will start from 3rd. Brandon Webb from 4th position. In row 3, it's Michael Melvin and Timothy George. Row 4, Zach Lindgren and his one and only start, he says, of the season. We'll see if that holds true. Dan Rowe will start from 8th. Starting 9th and 10th, how about David Levine and Sean O'Hara in 11th spot. First spot out of the top 10. Eddie Moran in car number 1. Michael De La Salle will roll off from the 12th position. Starting 13th, Mitchell Richtmeyer. Gotta get that name right, Richtmeyer, for car 89. Kevin O'Hara rolls off from 14th spot. Jack Gunsit from 15th. Spiro Poulos, Spyro the Dragon, way back there. He's got some work to do in 16th position. Pat Cole and Joseph Tackett bring up the rear of the field. Just waiting on the countdown to expire trackside for us to go racing a standing start with late model stock cars at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And these cars, they don't have a ton of power, especially for oval racing machines. They don't have a ton of power. They have a lot of rear grip. This will probably be a more underwhelming start than I think a lot of these guys are initially expecting going into this, but we'll see if anybody's able to get some wheel spin off the line. Still waiting on a couple of cars to grid. Michael Melvin is one of them. Looks like Jack Gunsit as well. Maybe Joseph Tackett at the back, as Melvin has gridded up. Here we go, 25 laps the distance this evening for the DLine Racing League. Waiting on the green lights. Waiting on the green flag, and we are green this evening from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Down to the keyhole for the first time. Tyler Langenberg out ahead with the race lead. Kyle House to 3rd. Schucker to 2nd. First side-by-side is Melvin and Webb into turn 2. And Melvin lock up on the outside. Loses a lot of space there to Tim George, who fights his way to the inside of the 36 car. Here comes Zach Lindgren now as well. On board with the 85 car. Up through the gears for the first time this race. There's 4th gear. And down to China Beach. This is going to get challenging. Zach Shucker drawing a bit closer here to Tyler Langenberg as they head through, trying to beat for the first time Levine. A move there on Daniel Rowe. That's a big spot for car 59. Especially on this opening lap. You take a look at the field coming on through the S's now. Very important piece of racetrack as they head up towards the Thunder Valley. I was going to say the Thunder Valley. Anyways, Melvin, some pressure here from George. They got that spot sorted. Brandon Webb ahead. Kyle House in third spot. Kevin O'Hara has dropped back to the 16th position behind Pat Cole as we look to complete lap number 1. Nice and cleanly here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. A bit of a deviation from what we've come to expect for the D-Line Racing League. A road course, a standing start, and a single file lap number 1. Zach Shucker's got company. Kyle House is right there, and Dan Rowe goes around. Car number 68 around out of turn number 1, and he will drop all the way to position 16. That's a challenging one early in this race. Meanwhile, up towards the front, we've got a Dodge, a Chevrolet Charger, we'll call it, for Zach Lindgren. That's certainly a unique one. On board with the driver out of New Mexico, now out of North Carolina. Only lap 2 of 25. These guys have a lot of work to do. They don't have that break like they usually do. Here we go. Problems in the back. Eddie Moore and Pat Cole. And Kevin O'Hara, it looks like, maybe, tangled up. This is down in China Beach. Let's take a look at the replay. But down in turn 4, Pat Cole into... Wow, there was a lot going on, and it really wasn't even Pat Cole's doing. He just kind of slid into things. Already was Eddie Morin turned around. We'll take one more look. And this will be an incident, it looks like, with Michael De La Sala fast down into turn 4. Heavy braking zone. Morin just gets into that 14 car, turns him around. Problems now live. Timothy George, Zach Lindgren having trouble. They have just had a coming together and are still having issues. Here it is. Looks like Michael Melvin gets into Brandon Webb, maybe, right there. Checks up. Tim gets into the back of Melvin. Zach into Tim. And wow, that was a lot of bad things going on very quickly for those couple of cars. And they have dropped all the way to the rear of the field. I think both of them. Well, Tim, of course, took a long time to get going again. And Zach probably thought he was at fault. Which I suppose technically you could argue that, but let's look on board. And we've seen this a couple of times this season where a driver can't see past these rather large rear ends of these cars. That's really hard to place on Zach. That was a chain reaction that started much further forward. Lindgren gets by Eddie Morin. Here comes Timothy George on car 14. Michael De La Sala down the backstretch. And into turn number 4. They'll get those passes complete. Zach Shucker, meanwhile, up ahead is putting some pressure on race leader Tyler Langenberg. And this is a bit of an unknown, how Langenberg will do in the race lead on a road course. Now, he was happy. He was looking forward to this round, and I think you can see why. He's got some speed. But Zach Shucker bringing some confidence this evening as he is all over that 91 car for the top position. Real fast through turn number 1, Sean O'Hara goes purple. You see your top 5 kind of broken away from the rest of the field. Levine now in 6th. A look there at Zach Shucker into the keyhole, putting pressure on the 91 car and leaving some room there to the inside is the 91 of Tyler Langenberg. Might have given up a tenth or so in that corner and allowed the 48 to close right back in again. And these guys go road racing every Monday night. We see their Tuesday night action on ovals, and that's only a piece of the puzzle here for these guys. They go road racing every Monday evening, sometimes on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and other days. They go endurance racing on the weekends, whether it's real or virtual. They know how each other race on a road course. The only variable here that's different, really, is the car, as Kevin O'Hara and Eddie Morin have a problem. This is actually 2 separate issues. O'Hara out of the keyhole, Morin out of turn number 1. And through Thunder Valley, ooh, a couple of cars out there in the grass, throwing up a little dirt. But this, again, is where we see a new variable. These cars are the road course. How are they going to perform? We've seen this before on Pit Stop TV, but not in this league. And these guys know their road course tendencies. These guys know their cars. They don't know them together, as Patrick Cole's got a problem. This is, I think this is into the S's for car 2. David Levine fastest that lap as Kyle House puts some pressure here on Shucker. We might have a fight for second. Levine, I think, able to use a lot of the draft last lap off of Michael Melvin, trying to use that air to pull him along in the back stretch. Here we go. Kyle House, though, out of turn number 2, out of the keyhole. Not able to keep right with Shucker. He was right on him going into the corner. Let off a little bit going up the hill into the keyhole and lost that time for good, it seems. I say for good. He'll probably get it back in a couple of corners. That 28 car is looking rather fine right now. And call it 6 cars now up front. They've lined up. Levine has caught him. And Eddie Moran, it looks like, has parked it for this race. Now, this will be an interesting preview for something we'll see later on in July. We'll have a Sunday night race here with a multi-class structure. And again, I invite you guys that listen back to this broadcast to join the Noble Racing League. Particularly, there we go, the Noble Can-Am Series. They race late model stock cars and super late models in a multi-class structure on road courses exclusively. And I know you guys here in the DLine Racing League love your road courses, especially with these stock cars. And they'll be going here to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course later in July, in fact, July 30th. As Levine goes faster at 28.596. You see Mid-Ohio there highlighted. And that, of course, is after going to Watkins Glen. How much fun will that be? As, here we go, Brandon Webb, some pressure from Michael Melvin on the inside of turn number 2. And sure enough, Melvin had the spot for a moment. Now, back on the outside, Brandon Webb thunders down the backstretch and is putting some time there on the 36 car. What a view as well. These two side by side from the number 20 machine of Brandon Webb, second in the point standings. But here comes Melvin back into turn 4. Contact there at the apex. Levine pulls up and says, yeah, I'll go on through. One of y'all figure it out. Contact, and 3 wide they'll go down into turn 5, 6, I think it is. Levine backs out. Melvin and Webb get physical. Contact there, and Brandon Webb spins the 59 car of David Levine. That will not go over nicely. I'll go over like a forgotten hood pin on a Mazda Miata hood. Spiro Pulo's trouble in the back with Timothy George and Zach Lindgren. And that certainly changes things up as these guys come around to complete lap number 6. Let's take a look back at that incident. Michael Melvin, David Levine, and Brandon Webb down into turn 4, where it really got exciting. And right there, I think Melvin maybe could have cut Brandon a little more slack. It's hard to say. Melvin then gets in deep to turn 6. You saw the lockup, and oh, that's tough. This is another situation where these guys are just racing, and they're probably laughing about it, I hope. I hope. Because nobody really did anything terribly wrong. Melvin, a big door check to Webb, really opened this all up. Here comes David. A little bit of net code, a little bit of coming over when maybe he could have left a little more space. That's a really, really tricky situation for these guys, and we can take another look at it. Here's the side-by-side into turn 4. Melvin gets the apex. That was beautiful. That was textbook. But then on corner exit, Brandon comes out a little bit, gets that quarter panel to him early, and Melvin comes back in, kind of door slams the 20 out of the way. Then they're side-by-side right there. And David Levine's in trouble. I suppose we'll have to let that one be to the admins and let them decide what to do with it. Brandon Webb, though, has sorted into 6th position after all of it. So, not too bad for him. And even David Levine got out of it okay. He's still in 7th. Only lost a couple of spots. Rickmeyer racing with Della Sala. They had a moment just now. It looks like a position change as Della Sala goes on by. Spiro Pulo's just ahead for the 14 car. And Zach Shucker has got something. Here we go. Nose to tail through the keyhole briefly. Shucker was on the 91 car and has now fallen back. Down the backstretch they go. Lap 8 of 25. Still real early in this race. We might see a pit stop from these drivers as well. That might be something we end up seeing from these guys. It's kind of right in between where I would expect a pit stop and maybe not expect one on a road course like this to run 25 laps. It'll be close. Shucker still all over the back end of the 91 car, and I gotta say, you know, elevated performance, you can make a lot of tagline jokes of how they've elevated this series, but a year ago, these guys would be smashing it up in trophy trucks at Irwindale on the figure 8. And here this evening, we're running late model stock cars on a road course, Mid-Ohio, a fantastic road course, one of David's favorites. And these guys are putting on some really cool racing. This top 3 especially, nose to tail to nose to tail. Just seeing the growth from this series and the D-Line Racing League and everything they have going on is really cool to see, especially for a bunch of friends. David Levine, Zach Shucker, Michael Melvin. Everybody, of course, over at Lucky Motorsports Solutions. Brandon Webb could be included in all of that. Very cool to see the growth from this series, and it's all thanks to Elevated Performance and Pat Cole. Check out TeamElevatedPerformance.com for more information on what Elevated can do for you. Because, of course, to rise, you must elevate. Zach Lindgren trying to rise or elevate through the field. He is back into the 10th position, top 10 at least, after starting 7th. Chasing down Timothy George, or at least trying to put chase to the 00 car after they made contact down in the carousel multiple laps ago. I want to say that was lap 2. We had those two tangle. And Tim, by the way, of course, got his first win of the season last week at Southern National Motorsports Park, won the main race of the evening, took home a bunch of points, and moved up a bunch in the standings as he fires into turn 4 here on lap 9 of 25. He does have a ways to go to Dan Rowe, but these guys can absolutely make up that time as they run over turn 5 and 6. Might even be fighting between themselves here soon for that 9th position. I'm sure Zach will try and cut him a break, won't push him too hard, and they'll try and work together. Meanwhile, one more lap complete for our race leaders now at a lap 10, and here we go. That was almost an open door, as Brandon Webb has some blinks in the back. That was almost an open door from Zach Shucker to Kyle House, and Kyle House, somebody else who's recently got himself a race win, winning at Phoenix Raceway a few weeks ago, won race number 1 of the night there. And the Michigan driver certainly putting chase here to the 48 car this evening. Pat Cole up the road. That could be fun for these guys to try and get through. That might bring Melvin back into the fight. He's 2 seconds behind Kyle House. And depending on how these leaders do with Pat Cole in the 2 car, we might see the 36 kind of run back in on these drivers. Real tight there at turn 5. Shucker looks to the inside, thinks better of it, stays in line. Not really a great place for any dives. We saw that with Melvin earlier as, well, no more worry about what will happen with that lap car. Pat Cole in the grass, unfortunately. Take a look here as to what happened for Pat Cole in the 2 car. Just came over, a little too much speed there over the crest at turn 5. Really easy to do. Zach Lindgren still putting pressure on Tim George, and again, I don't know how much these guys are really going to fight. Tim, though, wide there at the apex going into Thunder Valley. This could be interesting as they head up to the carousel section of this course. Lindgren right there on the 00 car. Again, though, I think especially after the contact earlier where Zach got into Tim, I don't think you're going to see much fighting out of the 85 car, especially in what he says will be his 1 start of the season. And Sarah, Mike, if you're out there listening, you're going to get this guy to race a little more on Tuesdays so I can throw a little more banter in there for him. But tonight, I don't think he'll need 4 new Desert Eagles on that number 85 car as, Pat Cole off the racetrack again there in turn 1. Zach, though, into the heavy braking zone there at the keyhole, putting some pressure on Tim George. Is that just enough? He pulls to the inside, not able to get by, though. Zach always plays nicely, is doing exactly that here in this battle as they head back down the backstretch. And of course, at the same time, Zach might have been giving up the draft here, where now he's getting the draft down to turn 4 in China Beach. This could be a big opportunity for car 85 into turn 4, but he stays back and does not close in just yet. He does still have half the race to go as we near halfway. Lap 11 currently underway. One more car getting lapped. That is Kevin O'Hara giving way to the race leaders, and that includes his son, Sean O'Hara, going by there in the carousel as we begin lap 12 of 25. It'll be halfway through the next lap. Car 59's got a fan. He was off track a little bit ago after contact with Brandon Webb, but David Levine has got a fan in the chat. He was able to get back up there. He also got a win last week, winning race number 1 on the evening at Southern National Motorsports Park. So a big day between the 59 and 00 cars. Unfortunately, it has kind of turned the other way. It's a bit more sour today for both of those drivers. Contact early in these races have put them each behind the mark. Meanwhile, race for the lead still getting spicy. Here is Tyler Langenberg defending over Zach Schucker. And the 48 car is trying to find a way by. Points leader coming into tonight. Got 3 wins of the season, tied with Brandon Webb for the most. And he wants to get by this 91 car and take the lead as far as wins. But of course, with only 1 race in the evening as opposed to 2 like usual, that is going to change things. Of course, that's going to break the tie. It's an oddity on the schedule. But oddities like that are good, as here we go. That was a bobble slightly through the carousel for the 91 of Langenberg. Gave up just a hair to the 48. He just needs a few more hairs and he'll be alongside. All of this, by the way, allowing Michael Melvin to catch up. He's been put in chase to these 3. Has turned that 2-second deficit to Kyle House into a 1-second deficit. And Sean O'Hara as well, catching up in car 18. You see here down to 1.3 seconds behind Michael Melvin in car 36. So Sean O'Hara, fresh off a plane, might be closing in on these guys for a battle here soon. We could have top 5 going at it again, as there we go. Up the inside is Zach Schucker on Tyler Langenberg. Not over yet. Langenberg tries to get back around the outside. Now gets hit by Kyle House and dumped around in turn 5. The race leader for exactly half of this race now sent around. Kyle House also sent reeling into the grass, trying to give up the position to Langenberg, but the damage has been done. Langenberg is still way out in the dirt, finally gets back on track. Here comes Daniel Rowe, ready to pass either one of these drivers, as House will now get rolling. Rowe will go by. What a moment for those couple of guys. We'll take a look back at that in just a second. Melvin now second place. Schucker pulls away. Sean O'Hara third. Everything has changed up in the front. Let's take a look back. So Zach Schucker sends it up the inside of the 91 car and makes that pass complete. But what exactly happens after that? Well, you can see Tyler tries to cross him over, checks up at the apex, and some trees get in the way. But he got run right over at turn 5, and that is a big problem for the 91 car. Of course, that's just good hard racing between these guys. Langenberg giving the door, trying to cross over. Then tries to park it behind Schucker and get a run for the downhill into the S's, and Kyle House just comes along, and that's a pretty big hit, too. Thankfully, there's no damage really to worry about. These guys, of course, have that damage healing enabled. But let's take a look at it from the perspective of Kyle House. Has that recent race win at Phoenix. Just trying to roll the corner, and that was a really, really big hit. That's part of it, though. That is racing, as we might have a Zach Lindgren, Tim George fight once again here soon. Zach has taken a couple of looks, but hasn't really gone for anything just yet. He's going to have to at some point. We got to see those driving skills like he usually puts on the road going to Taco Bell and back. And whoa, almost got to the inside there of the double O car. Come on, Zach, you got to live Moss in this case. You got to get to the inside of Tim. Put some pressure on him. Maybe you'll both go faster. I mean, that's all in good fun, of course. Tim George trying to keep it tidy around the apexes here of the carousel. And one more lap will be complete for them. 11 to go for these drivers. As I can confirm, we are towards the latter hours of the day as they fire into turn one. Zach buzzing the chip. He's just not pushing too hard. Meanwhile, I would have thought that somebody would be pushing hard by the name of Michael Melvin, but it seems like those tires might be getting a little bit warm for the 36 car. He is falling back, and oh, finally, Tim George opens the door for Zach Lindgren, and he goes through. He waits for the moment where we get off of his car with the camera, then goes on by. I'm telling you, I think it was staged, but here was the moment that Zach Lindgren finally took the open door, right on through, goes on by the 00, takes the position away, and is gone for that 9th position. Got a 7/10 of a second gap between them now as Zach Shecker comes around and will take 10 laps to go this evening at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I will say, maybe a little bit of live feedback. Give us a halfway break, bunch these guys back up. This would have been a real exciting race at that point, especially with this fight brewing between O'Hara and Melvin. Michael Melvin suddenly just falling off the pace that he had a few laps ago. He had driven within a second of the lead 3 that were fighting. Of course, those being Langenberg, Schucker, and House. Now they're all spread out, and Melvin is losing time profusely to Zach Schucker, now nearly to a 3-second gap to our race leader as Sean O'Hara closes in, as you can see on this onboard camera. And even Brandon Webb is starting to close in on these guys. We could have then a fight for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place between 3 cars to end this race. The 20 just looming in the distance. Levine not able to put chase to any of these guys. 10 seconds back. And this is the best fight on the racetrack as well. Michael Melvin having to keep this car underneath him as our race leader comes up to some lap traffic. That'll be Michael Rickmeyer in the number 89 car. New to the series. Glad to have him here, though. As this driver out of the Virginia Club on iRacing.com will play nicely here with our race leader. 9 laps to go and a pass for 2nd. Melvin opens up the door. Sean O'Hara says, thank you very much. And goes on by for the 2nd spot. Here's a look back at it. Seems like it might have been nice and orderly. We'll see if there was any contact. Just, wow. Really good placement, actually, from Sean. That was beautiful as I think Melvin got in deep and realized pretty quickly in the corner that he opened up the door and certainly was run down for a reason. That is one thing I respect about many of these drivers in this series. It's something I've heard something I've heard David Levine say a bunch of times. I caught you for a reason. Of course, saying it to a lap car in an iRacing official race that wasn't playing nicely, probably in an endurance race, probably at Sebring or Spa a few years back, but of course, I caught you for a reason. And these guys respect that. You saw Melvin there, recognized that O'Hara ran him down, and Melvin is better off getting in line behind Sean O'Hara and defending the next position, not losing that time, not losing that extra space to Brandon Webb, and holding whatever gap he can over the 20 car. But you know what? I betcha if Brandon gets there this lap or the next, he'll probably, if it's a move like that from Brandon, he'll probably do the same thing for self-preservation because Melvin's smart. But given what they did earlier in the race, it might be a little bit different as Rickmeyer and Poulos battle right ahead. Poulos on the inside pulls out of the way, no problem. Melvin, though, off the racetrack, and just like that, here comes Brandon Webb. Goes on by. Melvin stays smart, lets that pass happen. Facilitate that pass, but he's not done. He got to him there out of turn 1. Deep here into the keyhole, trying to put pressure back on the 20 car. And Brandon says, thank you very much, but I'll drive away. Daniel Rowe, you saw it right there in the static cam into the keyhole, right on the back end of Tyler Langenberg. And for the first time this season, we're seeing some really good tire wear on these cars, I think. A lot of these guys wearing their tires out, getting a little bit slower. And other drivers who have saved their stuff kind of coming back through the field a little bit. This Daniel Rowe guy, he has got some long run pace, certainly on the 91 car. It's closed back in. As we've got problems for Kevin O'Hara deep in the field. That's in the carousel, but it looks like the car is okay. As this is going to get fun. Dan Rowe right on the back end here of Tyler Langenberg. Through the S's and into Thunder Valley. Oh, real close there in the braking zone for turn 9. Maybe 8. I lose count. I know corner names more than I know corner numbers as Shucker goes purple. A 128.509. Rowe out wide to the curbing. And nice and tight around the carousel. Going to try and get some of that time back on the 91 car. Not going to happen just yet. Brandon Webb, Michael Melvin, they fight. And, oh. That is not where I expected to find the 20 car. Replay coming for the 20 of Brandon Webb. Had gotten on by Michael Melvin, and then this happens. On the curbing, loses it. And around she goes. So trouble for the 20, of course. He had such a great start to this season. Won the first 2 races at South Boston Speedway. Then the following week gave him up to Zach Shucker at USA. And honestly, since then, I know they split a win, I believe it was at Concord. But Brandon has just not been the same. I don't know exactly what it is, if it's been a lack of practice, if he's got something going on that just demands his time away from the sim, or who knows. But those first 2 races were great. Since then, a little bit off the mark for Brandon Webb. We'll see if he can change things in the back half of the season, as of course, race 6 of 12 this evening marks that halfway point. Spiropoulos still not far back of Mitchell Rickmeyer. Got to get that one down. I want to say Michael Rickmeyer for some reason. But Mitchell Rickmeyer. This is 12th and 13th as they come around and take 6 laps to go. Daniel Rowe on Tyler Langenberg. That's not gone anywhere. But ahead of all of that, Michael Melvin still on Sean O'Hara. Back within a half second as they fire down into turn number 2. The keyhole here at Mid-Ohio. Melvin in around the outside of the corner. Trying to get a cut back now for the backstretch. And I'll be darned. That might have worked. No, I don't think so. O'Hara pulling away now. Mid-portion of the backstretch here. Melvin looks like he's better in the corners than the straightaways right now. A big thank you once again to our partners here at Pit Stop TV, Whiplash Media SimCams. You can follow along with that fun over at WSimCams. Of course, ATVO and CC's Business supporting us here at Pit Stop TV. Riding on board with Michael Melvin with 6 laps to go. Zach Shucker is your race leader. Sean O'Hara second as Shucker looks for a way by Pat Cole. A lapped car in car number 2, and Pat Cole of Elevated Performance gets on over. A little bit extra even for Zach. Gives him an open racetrack into turn 1. And once again, the things that this partnership, Elevated Performance and DLine Racing League, has done is really open the door for this series, for races and racing like this. Michael Melvin around the outside into the keyhole. Sean O'Hara holding down the bottom side. And sliding a little bit was the 18. Out on the 30, out on the outside is the 36 car of Melvin. This is far from over. Sean O'Hara having to defend. Melvin, a really good entry onto this straightaway down to turn number 4 at China Beach. Is he going to cross over to the inside? No, he'll stay outside. These kinds of broadcasts, these kinds of moments would not have been caught in past seasons. Without elevated performance, it wouldn't have happened at all this season. O'Hara still giving a line there to the inside. The 36 car of Melvin, who gets loose out of turn 5 and gives it all up. But he won't be done there. He's going to get those tires cleaned off and get back after it. Still 5 laps to go. 4.5, if you will. This fight far from over as Dan Rowe goes around right on the back end of Tyler Langenberg. I think he finally had him in a good spot. And now off the racetrack, he'll get back on as Tim George goes by. There goes Kevin O'Hara. O'Hara not for position, but certainly still an insulting feeling there for Dan Rowe as he goes around right on the back end of the 91 car of Langenberg for 6th spot. And Zach Lindgren, by the way, he has put 2.5 seconds between himself and Tim George. And Zach now 3.2, 3.3 seconds off of Kyle House. The last lap for Kyle House, a 129.897. Zach Lindgren, a 131.2. So he just lost 1.2 seconds to Kyle House, actually, who ran a 130.017. Meanwhile, up ahead, looks like no pit stop in sight, which means Michael Melvin can focus up on the 18 car. Once again, he was there a lap ago, got loose out of turn 5, where we're headed up to next. There's turn 4, both on the exit curbing, or the apex curbing rather. Now the apex at turn 5. And Melvin closing back in ever so slowly. It'll be 3 laps to go this time by. Michael Melvin still within a half second. The closest battle on the racetrack for 2nd spot. I will say, Sean O'Hara really impressing this evening. We don't get to see much out of him driving in the real world with this particular friend group. He's a mechanic for Penske. And usually, everything we see out of him is in the wintertime anyways. Of course, nicknamed Santa Claus. From Alaska, has made himself a racing career. Doing a fantastic job right now going toe-to-toe with the driving coach and Michael Melvin. I wonder if maybe Michael can pick up some notes here from Sean as he lunges into turn 2. That was beautiful. From both drivers, really. Sean backed it down on the apex. Melvin charged the corner. Stays with him. Backstretch now for these two drivers. Lap 23 of 25. 3 laps to go. They're a quarter second apart. Driver's eye for Michael Melvin into turn 4. Over the curbing there at turn 5. Now down hard to turn 6. Into the S's. A complicated piece of racetrack for sure here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Melvin not letting it hold him back. Of course, he's done a lot recently in motorsports with TRG. Consistently winning races as an engineer. Into the carousel will be 2 laps to go this time by for these two drivers and for everybody else as they come around and take that 2 to go signal. Michael Melvin right on the back end of Sean O'Hara. How will this one end? You see how close they are here on the front stretch. They're 7 seconds behind this man, Zach Shucker, who is headed up to turn number 2, the keyhole, for the penultimate time. And there goes Melvin out wide at turn 1, taking a lot of grass with him, taking the landscaping route. Gets back on the racetrack, a half-second gap still. Webb solidly in 4th. No worries back to Levine in 5th. Langenberg, who was out way out in the grass. That was Pat Cole in turn 1. Clear out there in the grass and gravel as Levine will come up and try and pass him. Sorry, Lindgren rather, who has lost some time to Tim George. But here we go, Michael Melvin into turn 4. He's going to send the 18 off course. No! Wow, what a catch for Sean O'Hara as Michael Melvin sends himself off the racetrack. He's got just enough time, maybe? No. Spins right on the outside of turn 4. Hopefully he's not beached. Levine goes by, buzzes the nose of that car. And this is a tough, tough wait for Michael Melvin. 8th place. There goes ninth. Oh, he might have just beached it. He might have just... Nope, there we go. It's just enough traction to get back going. Oh my goodness. Pat Cole off the racetrack there as well. Well, as we take the white flag here presented by Whiplash SimCams, Zach Shucker, 1 lap to go, but this was the moment between O'Hara and Melvin. And Michael Melvin way out to the gravel. One more look at it before we go back up to the race leader with less than a lap to go. Melvin down into turn 4, just on the brakes late, jacks up the 18. What a catch, though, from both of those drivers. That could have been so much worse, especially the 18 there of Sean O'Hara. What a catch to stay on the racetrack, not lose control, and keep after it here. Zach Shucker, meanwhile, down to turn 4 himself for the final time this evening. It has been a clean race for car 48. Was in that fight with Kyle House and Tyler Langenberg. As soon as Shucker got by Langenberg and House made contact, and it has been smooth sailing since then. A 9-second gap now to Sean O'Hara. 5 more to Brandon Webb. 3.5 more to David Levine, and still nearly 3 more to Tyler Langenberg. Everybody has spread apart on this last lap of racing. All eyes on car 48, Zach Shucker at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It's been a rough going for him lately. But car 48 is going back to victory lane in the lone trip to a road course this season. Checkered flag is out for Zach Shucker at Mid-Ohio. Here comes Sean O'Hara. He will claim that second position. Brandon Webb will claim third through the carousel. How about David Levine in car 59? He got sent off by the 20. He'll still hang on to 4th place. There's Langenberg for 5th. Kyle House, a nice comeback. He stays 6th position. And Zach Lindgren, through all of that, gets right back to where he started, 7th place here at Mid-Ohio. So sure enough, as was wished in our YouTube chat by one Kayla Rondell, the 59 car beats the 85 this evening. A few more come across the line. No battles left on this last lap. Michael De La Sala will come along here in just a moment and claim his 11th position. He's into the carousel now. Spiro Poulos next up, about a lap back from Michael De La Sala. In fact, just over a lap. Kevin O'Hara coming around, one more lap back from Spiro. And that will be this race done and dusted as Zach Shucker and Sean O'Hara celebrate down by China Beach. What a race for both of them. As far as the results show, they dominated this one. It was with a little more context than that, but certainly burnouts worthy. Here by Zach Shucker claiming the win for car 48. You see a few others taking part in some of the celebration. Dan Rowe, and a big smash up there at China Beach. Hats off, though, to Zach Shucker grabbing the win when it's all said and done this evening at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Let's go back and take a look at our unofficial race results after 25 laps of racing. Going to victory lane as car 48 led 13 laps, half the race here at Mid-Ohio. Sean O'Hara goes second, Brandon Webb third. David Levine fourth, only lost 20 seconds in all of that. I think he'll take it. Tyler Langenberg goes 5th this evening. Kyle House 6th. Zach Lindgren 7th. And Tim George, Dan Rowe, Michael Melvin, the remainder of the top 10. 8 more cars showed up this evening. 2 of them did not start, those being Jack Gunsit, Joseph Tackett there at the bottom. Points leader Zach Shucker keeps it up front. Car 48 going to victory lane this evening. And Zach, I know it's been a rough couple of weeks on and off the racetrack, but this has got to be a good way to set all of that aside. Go out there, grab a win this evening, and show this league what for. You led about half the race. What happened there from your point of view with Langenberg and House right behind you?
A little bit on exit, and it looked like Tyler stayed wide, trying to get a run back on me, and I don't know if Kyle just slid up into him, just barely being there, but it was so hard to tell because you're kind of cresting over the hill there.
Well, thankfully, it was all smooth sailing for you afterwards. 13 laps led. After that, seemed like a pretty calm race for you. Not much to worry about.
Yeah, I just tried to focus on making sure I hit my marks and don't burn the tires off, because this car is kind of old school in the mentality of you can start overheating the brakes and the tires, and you got to kind of back up what you're doing and not be too aggressive and smooth it out. And I just started focusing on smooth as fast.
Certainly love an old school car on a road course like this, especially here at Mid Ohio. What do you think comes next up for for this league, of course, when we go to North Wilkesboro? How do you think that one's going to shake out?
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. That's one of my absolute favorite tracks. That and Martinsville were two of them I had circled on the schedule from the very beginning, because whatever reason, those both clicked for me.
A couple of driver racetracks coming up, much like here this evening. Congratulations, Zach. 13 laps led. You got those 0.005 of a second back on Langenberg from qualifying. Good to see it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Zach Shucker takes home the win this evening. It's Sean O'Hara, though, in second place, following a really, really heavy battle there with Michael Melvin. Sean, what happened there in the closing laps between you and Melvin?
I don't know if I braked a little early or if he had a bigger run. Just was coming with a head of steam and misjudged what we were doing at that point.
Well, between yourself and everybody else out there, there were a couple of doors, a few fenders exchanged back and forth, and Zach mentioned this feels like an old school kind of car on a road course, and it looked like old school racing. You guys beating and banging like old school NASCAR on a road course. Did it feel that way?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely holding on to the car at the end with the tires getting worn off, and just trying to get around this small track, trying to pass some people. It was very difficult.
Now you get a week off before we head to North Wilkesboro Speedway, back to oval racing the rest of the season. Do you have a chance to get back to practicing? I know you just got off a plane, just got back from New York right before this race went live on iRacing. Do you have a chance now to practice at all?
Nope. My first laps return this evening here.
Well, best of luck to you the rest of the season. Kind of a halfway break here next week for Independence Day. Have a good one. We'll see you in Wilkesboro.
Thank you very much. See you guys soon.
Sean O'Hara, second place this evening. Santa Claus giving out some gifts, as we'll take a look and take a talk here with Brandon Webb, who we haven't spoken with in a few weeks, actually, in Car 20. And Brandon, it's been a couple of weeks since we talked to you, but a big win here, or not a big win. You know what? A big win compared to the last few weeks. Third place has got to be an improvement back to your kind of usual place up in the top three. What was it like behind the wheel?
It was a night of ups and downs, sir. I felt like I had a good car and good pace. But I'm gonna call it actually a win, because after a couple mishaps on track, fighting back to a podium, I don't think I could have done much better than that in the end.
You've seen some doors, some fenders handed out, not only this evening, but in recent weeks. You get a week off, though. Next week, July 4th, you get to kind of shake things out and then go racing at North Wilkesboro. How do you feel for that?
I'm looking forward to it. Wilkesboro's a fast track, and I don't know if it plays into my strengths or weaknesses, but it's such a fun track to go to, and looking forward to the week off too. I know David and I both have birthdays coming up, so we'll probably celebrate that. But looking forward to it. It's a good experience getting together with all these guys just about anywhere we go.
Well, happy birthday to you and David Levine, because those will pass by the time we're back here for the DLine Racing League. So happy birthday to both of you guys. Brandon, crack open a cold one. Coors, if that's your choice, considering it's on your car. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Wilkesboro.
Thanks, man. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Always good to talk to Brandon Webb here on the DLine Racing League. That is it then for driver coverage down on the racetrack. One more look before we go this evening at our race schedule. South Boston Speedway opened things up. Lakeland, Concord, Phoenix, Southern National, Mid-Ohio. And I lied. I said we would only have, or I said that was it for driver coverage. We're going to grab somebody. And we're going to talk to him. Because we're going to guilt him into racing a little more here. Zach Lindgren, do you have a copy?
I got you, buddy.
I bet you didn't expect this.
No, I really did not.
Well, you have 7s across the board. Started 7th, currently 7th. Well, I guess finished 7th. The high is 7th. What happened there mid-race before I put you through a guilt trip?
Just a bit of accordion effect. I think Michael Melvin got into the back of Brandon, had checked him up, and Tim checked up for it, and I was a little late on the braking to check up for Tim, and I sent him around. This is the first race I've been in this series with these guys, and it happened to be on a road course where I got into Tim, so I just pulled over with him, kind of let him get it all gathered back up. There was no need for me to try to, take advantage of others' downfall because of my nose. So I just decided to pull over, let him gather it back up, and go back racing from there.
Well, I'm glad you finally decided to live Moss in your Chevrolet Charger, Taco Bell, whatever you want to call that. But I do like that you say this is your first race of the season, because I heard from a little birdie that you're only planning on racing this one race with this great group of friends on Tuesday evenings through the summer. What is that all about? Do we see you in a couple more of these?
How much did he pay you to say? How much did David pay you to say that? This sounds like a paid commercial in order to get me here the rest of the season.
$3.99. $3.99. We just want you here.
He gave you a couple of burritos. Well,
I wish.
I
wish that was in my paycheck.
I had other Tuesday obligations before this one opened up. I was in another league, and that one ended, which opened up Tuesday to race in this one. I might be able to run a couple more as August rolls around. I might get taken up again, but you might see me in a couple more races, especially in the short courses. You might see me next week. I can't say for anything certain, but it's very likely that you'll see me next week at North Wilkesboro. Yeah, like I said, I just had other obligations to a different league, and that one finally ended on Tuesday, so it opened me up for this one.
Well, I don't think we'll see you next week. Next week we'll be looking at some fireworks on July 4th, but we'll be happy to see you on July 11th, buddy. I'll tell you what. And,
yeah, you make a good point.
Well, it's good to see the 85 back on track here with all these guys. Hey, a little bit of a weird night for you with that early contact. Probably had a few more spots in you, but congratulations on a relatively clean run, we'll say, getting back to the field. And hopefully we see you a bit more this season.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
That's Zach Lindgren. We won't repeat his Discord name for you guys in the league. You can see it and laugh at it all you want, but we'll leave that there. This has been a really fun season, and I really do appreciate the one thing that I think matters the most to all of us here is being able to have fun with friends on a Tuesday evening here at the DLine Racing League. They do it throughout the week, and maybe this is the beginning of something a little bit bigger for DLine to do this a little more often with a couple more series with the league, because we're broadcasting here on Tuesday evenings, even solo, in this solo capacity without Zach Murtis this evening, is so much fun. Be able to talk about these guys that I know in real life and their tendencies and how they're going to laugh it up off the racetrack. It's a lot of fun, and I really do appreciate this rare chance, thanks to Pat Cole and Elevated Performance, of course, to Rise You Must Elevate, elevating this series to new heights this season. And if you're out there watching and want to get in a late model stock car and rough it up with these guys, you've still got 6 points paying races and an all-star race to do it. The tracks are set, but I hear something may be changing soon. And we'll have clarification on that, I'm sure, by North Wilkesboro next time out on July 11th, 2023. Then we have one heck of a summer stretch. Wilkesboro, Martinsville, Five Flags, New Hampshire, New Smyrna, Lucas Oil, and Nashville the rest of this season. Thanks for tuning in this evening here at Pit Stop TV. We certainly do appreciate it. Here's a look at our upcoming broadcasts. We have the rest of the week off, which is a nice little bit of a summer break for us. I say a break, it's a week. A summer slowdown for just a brief moment. This is the last broadcast of June, but we will come back in July with some really, really fun racing on a Monday evening, July 3rd at Fairbury Speedway, on David's birthday, actually, so happy birthday once again to David Levine. Will be pro late model racing at Fairbury Speedway with the Dirt Car Pro Late Model Series and EPI. Then Wednesday evening, the hashtag Heidi Strong Benefit Race by Sean English Racing, Elite Performance Industries, and other partners we'll talk more about on July 5th at Daytona International Speedway. It will be, in fact, I can bring out some information about this quickly from Sean. I really do appreciate his efforts. It's actually for his mother, who was going through breast cancer, as you can tell there from the pink ribbon. And it'll be an 80-lap race, trucks at Daytona, fixed, set up $200 to win. So while being a benefit race, there's some pretty solid benefits for the drivers as well. But this is all to raise some funds for Heidi English as she battles breast cancer and we certainly wish the best to the English family. This is, it's never an easy thing to go through. My grandmother recently went through it. I know firsthand it's not an easy or fun thing at all. It's a benefit race. Sure, we'll have fun doing the race, but there's much bigger things going on there on that Wednesday evening. Glad to be brought in for that one. And of course, Thursday evening, we will have the North American Racing League bonus race from Long Beach Street Course in Long Beach, California on July 6th. So in a couple of Thursdays now. That'll do it for us this evening at Pit Stop TV. Once again, a big thank you to our partners with the channel. Whiplash Media Simcams, ATVO, CC's Business. Of course, a big shout out to Elevated Performance and Pat Cole. Everybody over at that team. And that will do it. We'll see you next time. North Wilkesboro Speedway, July 11th. Otherwise, check in with us on July 3rd for some dirt late model racing from Fairbury Speedway. A big shout out to those who make it happen for us behind the scenes. In audio, ATVO, Whiplash Media Simcams, OBS, and iRacing.com. We will see you next time, hopefully, from Fairbury on July 3rd.